The Hawkins family purchases a robotic assistant or synth and names it Anita. Later, they learn that Anita used to be Mia, a conscious synth who was a mother figure to synth hybrid and the son of the synth creator, Leo. The Hawkins' eldest daughter, Matilda, helps Leo reunite with Anita and unlock her memories, thus becoming Mia again. Amazed and indebted to the synth who took care of and saved her children, Matilda's mother, Laura, is determined to help Mia and her family escape those destroying any trace of the sentient synths. However, her husband, Joe, uses Mia's adult option while she was still Anita, causing a wedge in their marriage. Suspicious of the sentient synths, Joe reports them to the authorities, so Max, one of the conscious synths, sacrifices himself so Leo can escape. Meanwhile, Detective Karen Voss investigates a murder, which apparently was committed by another sentient synth named Niska, who defended herself from a man wanting to use her. When her partner, Detective Pete Drummond, leaves his wife, who has fallen in love with her synth, Karen offers him to stay at her place. This brings the two closer together, only for Karen to reveal that she's also a sentient synth. Appalled, Pete leaves her. The next day, Karen recalls how synth creator David Elster created her and introduced her to his synth children. However, seeing her made Leo emotional, so David threw her out of the room. At the Hawkins house, Laura finds Mia worrying about Leo, sympathizing with the synth since she sees the man as her son. She also sympathizes with how Mia was trapped in Anita before, but the synth assures the woman that she understood the meaning of family through the Hawkins. Laura thinks they're not the best example, and as she tears up, Mia comforts the woman. Joe then arrives, begging Laura to allow him to be their children's father. Unaware that he reported Leo to the police, she agrees, but he'll be sleeping on the sofa. As soon as he enters the house, Mia holds out her hand to greet him since she hasn't met him before as Mia. Joe then awkwardly shakes her hand. After tracking down clues, Karen heads to Dr. George Milliken's house, one of the pioneering synth creators, as she knows that he's hiding Niska. Karen forces herself into George's house, surprising Niska as she recognizes her. She then reveals to George that David created her to replace his deceased wife, Beatrice. When Leo rejected her, David took her to the woods to be destroyed. However, he didn't push through with it, so Karen went into hiding. Niska explains that they didn't look for her because David told them that she was dead. He also killed himself that day. If they'd known she was alive, then she would have been with them by now. However, Karen doesn't want to be part of their family since she wants to cease to exist. She gives Niska a pistol loaded with 4 bullets, explaining that her root code prevents her from killing herself as Beatrice did. Karen believes that being able to feel only gives them pain since they're an experiment gone wrong. However, Niska explains that David left them a program that can create more sentient synths, which will earn them their place in the world. Karen views Niska's goal as a threat to humanity, so she points her gun at her. Niska walks out, and Karen follows her. Thinking she's about to be attacked, Karen fires her gun, only to end up shooting Vera, George's assistive synth. Finally, she finds Niska, but just as she's about to shoot her, George intervenes, saying that her life can still change. However, Karen accidentally pulls the trigger when Niska suddenly speaks, and she ends up shooting George. Shocked, Karen leaves. With his last breath, George tells Niska to flee before the police arrive. Niska wishes to save him, but she's forever grateful for the human who gave his life for her. After she leaves, Odie, George's defective synth, comes downstairs. Before George passes away, he provides him with little comfort by retelling the moments they shared with George's deceased wife. Elsewhere, Leo meets up with Fred, another of his sentient synth siblings who recently escaped from Hob, a scientist pursuing the sentient synths. He tells him about Max's sacrifice, but Fred assures him that they can recover his body and repair him. On their way to the river, Leo receives a call from Niska, notifying him that she left George's house because it's not safe. With this, Leo tells her to meet them somewhere. Unbeknownst to Niska, she's being tracked down by Hob. At the Hawkins residence, Mia notices Laura is uncomfortable around her husband. Knowing that it's because of what Joe did to her as Anita, Mia tries to make amends, but Laura doesn't blame her since Anita had no control over her functions. Matilda and her brother, Toby, dislike having their father around since they know what he did, but their younger sister, Sophie, happily greets him. Suddenly, Niska arrives and reunites with Mia, who introduces her as her sister. Meanwhile, Fred calculates where Max might possibly wash up. Leo doubts that his calculations are accurate, but Fred proves him wrong when they find Max on the shore, just as he predicted. At the Hawkins, Niska tells Mia about Karen but asks her not to tell Leo as it might only distract him. Shortly after, Leo arrives with Max and Fred. Joe helps bring Max inside while Fred gets rid of the car. Right away, the operation to save Max commences. Leo and Mia direct the Hawkins family on how they can help while Matilda tracks Max's energy reserve. They start to worry when it keeps on draining. Eventually, with Niska's synth fluid and everybody else's assistance, his energy reserve increases. Now they only have to wait until Max gets a 13-hour charge. Then they can try rebooting him to know if he'll still work. Later, Toby plays football with Fred. Joe joins them, and he uses this time to casually apologize to his son. Meanwhile, Sophie plays with Niska, making her temperament toward humans soften further. Matilda, on the other hand, tries befriending Leo. However, since he last showed her his memory to prove who he and his family is, Leo has grown upset that he had to relive the bad moments. Matilda apologizes, but Leo says that perhaps he needed to share them too. Meanwhile, Hob investigates George's death. When he gets to his car, Karen is already in the back seat, explaining that George's death was an accident. Hob recognizes her as the detective on Niska's case, but Karen tells him to look deeper. He then realizes that she's Beatrice, but Karen replies that she's not and David only created her to replace his dead wife. Revealing herself as one of the sentient synths, Karen volunteers to help capture the others as long as Hob promises to kill her when everything is over. She explains that she wants to help because they never should have been created in the first place. At the Hawkins, a police officer arrives. Joe talks to her, and everyone overhears that he called the police on the sentient synths last night. This angers Leo, but Mia defends that he would have done the same to keep his family safe. As Joe caused trouble again, Laura distances from him further. Later, Mia urges Laura to tell Joe about Tom, her deceased brother. She adds that Joe loves her, but the secret is a barrier to their marriage. However, Laura dismisses her advice. During dinner, the atmosphere is clearly stiff. Laura wonders what the synths' plans for the future are, as they won't last forever. Niska says they will, so Mia asks Leo what she means. Leo hesitatingly explains the programs David left them, which can provide consciousness on other synths. This makes the humans uneasy. Later, the synths discuss their options. Since the Hawkins know of their plan, Niska urges her siblings to leave once Max is fully charged. The next day, they try to power Max up. However, his mind has been without power for too long and has become defective. Leo says they've lost him for good, but they can still activate the program that David left. Just before they can, Laura and Joe see Niska in the news as she is wanted for murder and harming people at an anti-synth rally. With this, they take Sophie away from Niska and tell the synths to leave. Leo asks to let them fix Max first, and Matilda and Toby side with them. However, Laura and Joe want them out, thinking they're a threat to their family. Mia reasons with Leo, telling him to just leave. Right away, Leo gathers his things but finds Karen in the kitchen, still attached to his mother's memory. Leo goes with her when she holds out her hand. The other synths stop him, and Niska reveals that Karen once tried to kill her. As Leo hesitates, a SWAT team suddenly barges inside with Hob, who arrests the synths. Hob brings the synths to his lab, where he binds them in preparation for tests. Meanwhile, the Hawkins think of a plan to save the synths. Matilda suggests extracting some of Leo's digitized memories from his laptop, as they can use this as leverage. However, their devices have been surrendered to the police. At the lab, Hob links all the synths' minds, hoping to uncover David's program. Leo tells the others to go through with it, as this might be their last chance at saving Max. With this, all 5 synths work together to understand the program. However, they fail and soon realize that they need Karen with them. Suddenly, the research executives enter the laboratory, surprised upon seeing Fred since Hob had them believe that he was destroyed. Instead, he made alterations to Fred's program, making him the primary user. With this, he pitches his idea to create sentient but obedient synths for humans who want to be loved as well as served. To prove this, he brings Fred over. Fred immediately tries to choke him, but his program prevents him from harming Hob. The synth realizes that Hob wants to enable their emotions while taking away their free will, which basically makes them slaves. Before dismissing him, Hob orders Fred to keep this a secret from the others. Meanwhile, Pete has been investigating Karen and her past life. Guilty of how he rejected her, he goes to the Hawkins residence to ask for answers, having followed his superior officer who's working for Hob. In exchange, he helps Matilda and Toby in recovering Leo's laptop. After this, he drives away with them, despite risking his job. At the lab, Hob finds no reason to keep all of the synths because he already has David's program. However, he's determined to keep Leo to figure out how David created a hybrid like him. Because Leo isn't entirely human, the law doesn't acknowledge his rights. This makes it legal for Hob to run experiments on him. Just then, Hob receives a call, so he leaves the lab. Unbeknownst to him, Karen overheard their conversation, so she enters the lab to talk to Leo. She believes that he deserves a shot at life because he's part human. However, Leo argues that the other other synths have lives too. He tries to appeal to Karen's humanity, which he explains is a quality, not a state of being an actual human. He reasons that she's just like them. Hearing this lights her face up, but she retracts her smile and abruptly leaves. Meanwhile, Matilda manages to retrieve the copies of Leo's memories, which she immediately sends to Laura. At the same time, Hob arrives at the residence, as it was Laura who demanded to meet with him. She then shows him photos that prove the existence of the sentient synths, which she threatens to release to the press if he doesn't let them go. Before Mia gets dissected, the research group receives a call from Hob, telling them to release the synths. With this, Leo gets reunited with Mia and the others. A researcher then hands a phone to Mia, and Laura is on the other line. Laura tells her to go where they first met and reminds her to ensure that they're not being followed. As the synths leave, Karen grows uneasy, but the researcher assures her that Hob has a backup plan. Meanwhile, Laura threatens Hob not to follow them before driving away with her husband and daughter. They head to the park where Laura used to go as a kid. There, she almost tells Joe about Tom, but the synths suddenly arrive. Laura then gives Mia money and clothes so they can go into hiding. Elsewhere, Matilda and Toby leave the laptop to Pete before going to the park to bid the synths goodbye. Unbeknownst to everyone, Hob has placed a tracker on Fred, so it takes little time for the police to arrive at their location. Coincidentally, there's an anti-synth rally in the city, so they utilize the crowd to escape. They manage to hide in a nearby church, and Toby mentions that he noticed Fred zoning out and glitching earlier, so Hob must have done something to him. As Leo attempts to ask Fred about it, the latter attacks him out of nowhere. However, Joe turns him off before things escalate. Shortly after, Leo calls Hob so he can reach Karen. During the call, he tells Karen to join him and the others at the church. When Hob asks what Leo said, Karen simply claims that he said goodbye. Elsewhere, Pete goes with one of Hob's men to return the laptop. However, he sees Karen, so he gives the laptop to the man and follows her. At the church, Laura finally tells Joe about Tom, her younger brother, who died while on her watch. She has kept his existence a secret since she still feels guilty over what happened. Meanwhile, Leo tries fixing Fred, but Hob's program is delicate, so he can't do anything without risking his brother's code. Suddenly, Karen arrives to help them restore Max's memories. With Matilda keeping track of them, the synths join together, and their minds are transported to a forest where they surround the Tree of Life. However, as soon as they place their hands on the tree, everyone, except for Mia and Karen, begins to corrupt. It turns out that Karen planned this as an attempt to stop them again. Mia pleads with her to have mercy on Leo, as he might actually die. With this, Karen gets a change of heart, and she helps the synths. Thus, they finally restore Max. After Max gets reunited with his family, Karen immediately leaves. Meanwhile, Fred tells everyone to go without him as he only brings danger. However, Leo only shuts him off. Now that David's life program is accessible, the synths are unsure what to do with it. Niska downloads the code from a hard drive and deletes it from the laptop. Until they know their next course of action, the code must be kept by someone they trust, and she believes this to be Laura. After this, the synths prepare to leave, but they must leave Fred behind. Max protests, saying that he's his brother. However, the synths remind him that they'll all be found if Fred is with them. Besides, he's the best at survival among all of them. With no choice, Max says goodbye to Fred, promising that they'll be together again eventually. Niska then decides that she won't be going with her siblings as she wants to live her own life now. She says her goodbyes and leaves. The synths also bid the Hawkins goodbye. Mia is the most emotional among them, and it pains her to leave her second family, especially Laura and Sophie, whom she's grown fond of. As Karen wanders on the streets that night, Pete approaches her. He tells her that she was made in the image of Beatrice Elster, and Karen jokingly says that she's surprised that he found that out by himself. Pete sympathizes with how she must have been lonely for a long time. He then asks her if she's coming with him, and Karen happily joins him. The next day, the Hawkins family resumes their usual routine. Matilda is on her computer, Joe and Toby are playing video games, while Sophie pretends to be Mia by dusting the place. Just then, Matilda notices that one of her hard drives is missing. Laura doesn't think too much about this, but then her speculation starts growing stronger. Aboard a train, Niska heads to an unknown location, and in her hand is Matilda's missing hard drive that might contain David's program, giving her the power to create more sentient synths.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.